know who your customer is, meet them where they are. You'll find out so much data to create even the best products just by being customer obsessed.
Welcome to the Millionaire University podcast. I'm your host, Brien Gearin, back in the saddle with you today. And joining us on this episode are two dudes who bootstrapped a $1 million online men's skincare brand. And they did this on the side of their day jobs originally, mind you. We're going to dive into anything and everything that we can, including how they got into this business, how they bootstrapped it from the ground up, they developed their brand from thin air, how they created the product, how they sourced it, how they manufactured it, how they marketed it, how they sold it. You name it, we're going to try and cover it today. So let's welcome to the stage best friends and business partners who own PrettyBoy Skincare for Men, Feys and Kevin Niehoff. Let's go. You guys are kind enough to join me today on the Millionaire University podcast. Dudes, welcome to the show.
What's going on, man? Thank you for having us. Stoked to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is a pleasure. And I'm going to get this plug in right now. We're all from the greatest state in the union, the state of Ohio. For those who don't know, so Ben and Kevin both went to the Ohio State University. See how I threw in the "the" there? I'm not even an OSU fan, but I threw in the "the" just for you guys.
You said it, not us.
Yeah, exactly. And Kevin, you played on the national championship Buckeye team in what year was that?
2015. So I was there 2012 to 2016.
All right. So national champion football player. That's pretty cool. And that's where you guys met. And guys, we're going to do a whole lot of unpacking of your business, PrettyBoy Skincare. We're going to talk about your journey. We're going to talk about the business and pull back that curtain for our listeners and really get into the nitty-gritty of running a 7-figure brand. So guys, my understanding is that you started out with some heavy market research. Why don't you pick up the origin story from there? Let us know how you guys hooked up, where this idea came from, and then what that market research really did for you guys in solidifying the idea that you had to bring this to the world. So let's let it rip.
Yeah, happy to be here, and it's nice to have two Bengals on instead of two Clevelanders, which usually I'm getting drilled by two Browns fans.
Hooday.
So now hooday, baby. Now we can team up on Ben. Yeah, so this kind of kicked off. So Ben and I both went to the Ohio State, as you said. Met freshman year, kind of hit it off immediately. Got a great friend group there, and we were always the two kids that really wanted to start something. Met back in 2012. I think the whole kind of entrepreneur e-com world was still blowing up then, but it was still fairly new, and we just didn't know what it was at that time. So we were always wanting to talk about how can we start some business? We don't want to work for the man. Fast forward, 10, 12 years now later, we both, funny enough, worked for the same medical sales job, living in the same house, one room apart. COVID hit, ended up going home, shut the world down, ended up going back home to Cincinnati, took an e-commerce class on how to build an e-com business. And Ben and I were still trying to play, had a bunch of ideas that we weren't really keen on, and came back to a typical founder story of what problems we're facing in our life. I was diagnosed with eczema my freshman year of college, started with a bunch of red breakouts, didn't really know how to handle it. I grew up with acne problems. I didn't have an issue. I didn't have skincare like most guys until college, until I had an issue. But we've both been going to the derm for over 10 years and hated a lot of the products we were using. There wasn't anything built for guys the way guys want, from like a texture perspective, a performance perspective. Any male brands out there at the time, I'd bring to my dermatologist and they'd be like, you can't put this on your face. It wasn't high quality products. There wasn't a brand that really resonated with us from a branding perspective of who we are as consumers. And then like a simplicity, just even, we don't want 10 products. When I was getting into skincare, going into the locker room for football, my mom and sister were like, here, just bring these products in. It's like, I'm not going to bring 5 to 10 products in and put them in my locker, nor am I going to stick with it. But took that class, we're like, hey, maybe there's something here. Like, there's not really this brand that we want out of skincare. So went 2 years. I'd say it's 4 years now since we started it. We launched just over 2 years ago, but we did 2 years of development. And we're like, we think this actually has some legs, and went all in about 4 years ago on, hey, how do we build the best skincare for men, and kind of set a new gold standard in skincare. We kind of wanted to, everyone likes to use Nike as an example. You think of Nike, it's not just shoes. We wanted to create this kind of clinically lifestyle brand, as we're talking about, or coining the term, this high quality product, but that actually has a brand that resonates with guys, and products that are built the way guys want. We're different consumers than women. And a lot of these brands kind of take that women approach, and a lot of SKUs, thick textures. They're not really listening to what the consumer wants out of skincare. So it's been a fun ride, and get to do it with one of my best friends, which is one of the coolest parts.
Yeah, I love that. And the fact that I feel like growing up, we'd always see like on Nickelodeon the commercials for like Proactive or whatever. It seems like the industry of skincare would A, be a really difficult one to crack, and B, for men, there's just not a ton of options. I'm sure that's changing. You guys are part of the wave of making that change. But what was it about initially hatching this idea? I mean, you had a problem, you're entrepreneurs, you needed to solve it. You're like, well, screw it, we're going to solve it. What did you do to figure out that this was something that wasn't just a problem for you, that it was a problem for other guys?
Yeah, great question. I know in your first question, you asked about the market research. I think the two questions go hand in hand. When we first started out, obviously, I think one of the easiest ways, and anyone listening who's considering like starting a business, one of the things we always told people, and anyone who's asked us since, is like, if you experience a problem and if like two people agree on it, then you just go like slightly more outside your circle and see like, does anyone else resonate with it? And if they still do, then keep expanding and just keep doing that exercise over and over until you feel you've gotten the information that validates it. That's the approach we took. So first, it was just within the small circle of friends. Like we have a lot of friends out here, our roommates at the time, who were either open to skincare but had no idea how to use it or no idea what products to use, or were actively using something and were like, yeah, I mean, I just use this because this is like the best option I could find. And from there, kind of like validating that super small circle, and then went out and built a couple different surveys. Our largest was close to 300 customers, and we basically incentivized not only our friends, but just like random people we met, posted on social media, say, hey, we're thinking about starting this company. Would love if you would take this survey. Crazy part is everyone's follow-up question is always, how did you actually incentivize them to do it? And one thing I'll say, and I think this is one of the reasons why we've been very fortunate to have the success we have so far, is that both Kevin and I are big relationship people. We've got our close friend circles, and I think, we treat them well, try to treat them well, try to be there for them when they need something. And so it was a very easy process to just go out and ask our friends to go, hey, can you go put this in a group chat of other people? Can you go ask so-and-so? And try to get outside of, you don't want to just have that like direct linear connection to who's answering the survey. You want to try and get a sample size that's representative of a bigger population. And that first survey answered a lot of like very interesting things for us. It kind of confirmed our hypothesis that guys really do prioritize simplicity. So they don't want to use, like Kevin said, the 5 and 10 step routines. Most guys see like 3 products in a daily routine as like the max that I would consider being called like simple, or something that I'm just like open to right out of the gate. We knew that guys, and this is just like pretty indicative of how guys purchase a lot of products, you need it to work, and you need it to work relatively quick. Guys will pay any amount of money for something that they love and that changes their lives. But like if you buy something that just doesn't do what it says, it's going to be a really quick turn off, and it's going to be really hard to get a guy back. I mean, I can't think of a single product I bought that I didn't like that they somehow won me back later down the road. So we knew they cared about simplicity. We knew they cared about results. We found out some more demographic information, what other brands they like, where they buy other products. And with that was that kind of final validating step of like, okay, this is it. Just like Kevin said, we've had so many ideas over the years, and I'm sure some of them were probably $1 billion ideas, and some of them probably would have put us bankrupt and homeless. But with this one, it's like once we got some of that initial feedback from the people that we were talking to, is like, okay, this like really, really does feel good. There was like the market indicators, kind of, he was talking about the white space. There's no brand that is doing what we're doing. We've seen some people start jockeying our messaging a little bit, but no one was actually like delivering it in the way that they were communicating it. The clinical community, the dermatologists, like no one had that one guy's brand to point people to. And for both Kevin and I, Kevin more so than me, he's like our branding genius. There was nothing that like you would buy and be like stoked to have. And I think like that's what's so fun about the PrettyBoy name and the way we show it, is like, who would have ever imagined that guys would be like really stoked about using skincare? Some of the reviews that like we see on our website are kind of like, no, people are like proud to use this product. They get really excited to like get their next shipment in. And so that lifestyle element, I think, also came out of that initial survey. And once we had all that data and once we had all those answers and went into the formulation process, I mean, it was just like full steam ahead at that point and never looked back since.
And I do want to touch on something too, to like credit to Ben and any of the like people that are thinking about starting a business. And a little bit of luck at the beginning, but Ben was really pushing for this. Is a lot of guys, like, especially for like building a brand or like businesses, and Ben uses a great analogy on like why he thinks a lot of restaurants fail. But a lot of people build the brand they want, similar with restaurants. Like, hey, let's just go, I want a pizza shop, right? There might be 5 other pizza shops on the corner. If you don't do the market research, like what we did is we did all this market research and then built the brand around the data. Majority of the time it's let's build the brand we want and then figure it out.
Yeah.
And we think that's what's been some of the reason for our success. Like honestly, most of the reason for our success is we're customer obsessed. and building the brand that guys want. And we always knew that like you go there, down the skincare aisle, there's a million different women's products. There's a lot of high quality clinical backed women's products. There wasn't anything like that for guys. You need the clinical, if you want this brand to blow up in skincare, you need the clinical community to back it, especially like I have eczema. I need something that I can put on my skin. And there wasn't anything that had clinical community behind it, but that lifestyle brand that guys are wanting, and then built the way they want, like Ben said, simplicity, texture. And credit to him, like we started with what do guys want and built the brand around that. And that's how we approach everything. And I would highly recommend that to anyone starting a business. Do your research, find out what your customer and demographic want, and go from there instead of building the brand you envision, because it's going to change the amount of things that we've wanted to do. And we're like, that's not what our customers want. It was a big learning for us starting a business. I'm very fortunate we approached it this way from the beginning.
Yeah, that's top-notch advice, because I think it's, like you said, it's so common for a business or an entrepreneur to start a business and completely forget about what the people they intend to serve really want. And if you don't have that, you're going to be behind the eight ball from day one. So I think that's awesome that you took that approach, and obviously it's paying off for you.
Yeah, what you just said is the difference between a passion project and a business. So I think that's just like a really important distinction for people who want to go down this path, because it's pretty nuts to do.
Oh yeah, exactly. When I experienced that in my marketing agency, where, we talk about writing ads, and it's like owners want to put out, either don't want to put out an offer, or they don't want to give away too much, or what they want to give away it makes no sense. No one's going to go for it, but to them it's a great offer. And I'm like, no. You need to think about what the customer will actually take advantage of. And I can tell you, this is not it. We need to go ask your customers. Great point there. So let's talk about the very first product. So you got the market research. You guys are like, okay, we've got the keys to the Ferrari here. Let's fire it up. Then what? You started talking about, we need to go, we have people interested. We've got proof that this is going to sell. How did you go about developing that first product, and what is that first product?
So the first product was a moisturizer. Kind of the thought process behind that was that we wanted to do something where we could definitely like uniquely position if we lived up to like the development kind of ideas that we had, if we can meet those claims or whatnot, but also was not so mass accepted yet that like we were just like going to be constantly butting heads with competition. So like the distinction there is like it was either launch a cleanser or launch a moisturizer, because those were going to be the easiest that we knew from some of the early, I'm skipping over a couple parts, but some of the earliest conversations of like what it was going to take cost wise to develop something as high quality as we did, what the process was, what the lead times were, how much cash we would need on hand and stuff like that. So we went with that moisturizer because it was like, okay, enough guys are open to using or are using, but there's not like a single product that really sticks out versus I don't want to make an assumption, but probably most of us have been using cleansers for quite some time. You may or may not have a face wash you really like, but that's something you just pop down to the drugstore very easily and get. And what we did is we basically, I think, and Kevin found this out in his class, it was truly the most amazing kind of thing for me. Because I worked at the Center for Entrepreneurship for 4 years at Ohio State, had done a lot of business plan, observations of business plans and going to the competitions and stuff like that. And one thing I never knew, and when Kevin told me this as part of his class, I was just mind blown, is in this industry, I always just assumed that if you wanted to make a water bottle, if you wanted to do a Yeti ripoff, you would have to have some type of product engineer on your team, someone who could really come and say okay, this is how we're going to do it. And they're going to, even if it's an open source patent, be oh, the Yeti technology, this is how we're going to apply it. And what you can do is you can find these labs. And for someone like Kevin and I, who our IP, I think, is more the way we operate the business and the way that we market the business and the brand, plus this product that we've launched that's so phenomenal. Knowing that you don't have to be a scientist, a formulator, to go to a lab and say, listen, this is what we want. And our hypothesis at that time was all the things we've already talked about. Can you make a product that lives up to the claims that it targets or impacts or provides results to the top concerns guys face? That's things like dry skin, beard irritation or razor burn and beard itch, aging for people like Kevin, their skin conditions and mitigating flare-ups, and go and look at multiple of these concerns, provide results for them, but do so in one product. And then that product also has to be gentle enough to be used for people like Kevin, for the 70% of Americans who have sensitive skin. And so we kind of both of us really like to work from the back, from the end goal down. And we just went to them and said, hey, is it possible to make this product? And the answer was resoundingly yes. And we're so why don't more people do it? Why do people launch so many SKUs? And the answer that continued to come back is a combination of I think a lot of people see that there's more money in just having more SKUs. You have more touch points. But we knew guys wanted simplicity. Like, guys don't understand skincare. So why the hell would you like confuse them right out of the gate? And that it costs more. So like, don't want to make any assumptions about any products that we don't know, but we do know that we pay a premium price for our product. That's why it is slightly more expensive than other ones that you might see in our category, and especially of like big retail. But the investment was an upfront investment to say like, well, we're going, if we can meet that hypothesis of having like a multifunctional, multi-skin concern targeting product, but it's just going to cost more. Like for us, that was like a clear yes. And we can get into that later. I'm sure Kevin will have some thoughts on the rest of the process that I just talked about. In this business to succeed and ecom to succeed, like similar to like SaaS, you're very worried about acquisition 100%. But like more than anything, what's going to prop the business up is the returning customers. And like we said, no guy is going to keep coming back for a product that they think is dog shit. So it was a very easy answer to invest like that.
And I think just to add on there, and I agree with everything he was saying, like one, so coming up with the products that, you know, we want to launch, like we were going back and forth, but our whole thing is less is more. That's what guys want. You know, we are customer obsessed. Ben touched on it. That's what's separating us, especially from all these other brands. It's high quality products and building a product the way guys want. Cleanser, everyone has a cleanser. We wanted to stand out, and our thought process was if you go down the aisle, there's a million different moisturizers, serums, eye creams. Like a guy's like, if you're new to skincare, you're like, what the hell? Where do I start? And everyone already has that cleanser. So we're like, hey, let's solve this problem with a moisturizer. You can consolidate it with high quality products. Any dermatologist tell you use multifunctional ingredients. You can consolidate that routine. Let's start with the moisturizer. We create a great product there. We get trust with our customers. When we launch our cleanser, which we just did, people are going to want to buy it. And then the hardest thing is SPF, which we're working on. Again, we're taking a very clinical approach is what's the 3 basic products that you need for a basic skincare routine that dermatologists would recommend, which is like a high quality cleanser, multifunctional moisturizer, and a good SPF. SPF's the hardest. So let's start with the 2 products, get customer buy-in, and then it's going to be easier to get them to adopt that final product, which is the SPF. And again, agree with everything Ben was saying. Taking that RIP is obviously the approach, but really like you see more and more male brands keep popping up. Our thing is we're building not only the highest quality products we can, take that clinical approach with that kind of lifestyle branding, but really just listen to our customers. We're building products the way guys want. We don't get worried about when another male brand pops up and they have all these different SKUs. It's, you know, we got the data on what guys want out of skincare, and we're going to continue to build products the way men want.
So this leads, I got a 2-parter here. How did you guys, A, figure out the type of ingredients that would be best? Like, did you consult clinicians on that? And then 2, how did you get into the manufacturing? Where, like, would you Google search a skincare manufacturer? How did you guys do those?
I'll answer the ingredients part, and Kevin has the way we found our manufacturer is a really cool story that kind of comes through him. I mean, ingredients, first off, it started with us just doing a bunch of research, and neither of us we're not academics and researchers. So like you're trying to rely heavily on like the ones that are in layman's terms. So there's sites like EWG, Inky List, like Paula's Choice is another more gender neutral, kind of lower cost, but high quality product or brand that they do a lot of like ingredient explanations. So again, our philosophy was that, and we always make this joke, like you would read skincare ingredients from like some of our competitors, and one of them is like some type of sea foam or like an ingredient that sounds like it was like extracted from some crazy animal in like an ancient Mayan ruined town, and you're like, oh, this like sounds sexy, but does it actually do anything? And is there a bunch of like literature behind it? And for some of them, there's like some starting to come out, but for most of them, it's not super proven yet. And we were like, Kevin, big athlete guy, me, like his biggest cheerleader, we were kind of like, okay, if we take the sports kind of analogy to this, like what if we go back to the fundamentals? Some of the biggest brands in the space, Kevin always says this, like CeraVe, they market very specific ingredients. Like their entire brand is around these ingredients that have been used for a very long time, have tons and tons of research done on them, have proven to actually do the things that they say. And we're like, if we're going back and trying to change the game, like we can change the game through branding. We can change your game through our like product philosophy and less is more approach. We can change the game through like our prioritization of textures. But like, we don't really need to change the game from using these like wacky ingredients. We can actually go back and say, what are some of the best ingredients that have been used in skincare for years? And if we combine those, like that was a question the formulators and the chemists is like, hey, can we just combine all these ingredients that other brands will have like 4 different SKUs to highlight one each? And the eye cream will have something like ceramides and hyaluronic acid, but then their moisturizer has niacinamide. and squalene and glycerin. And we were like, well, what if we just take like all of those and put them in one product? And the answer was, again, it was yes, it'll be more expensive, but yes, it'll work and it'll deliver the results you want and the texture you want. From there, we then did, like you said, we started building out like a mini team. We have a dermatologist who's part of our team, like formally. We're both ruthless at reaching out to people via DM, emails, whatever. And we got in contact with some people who had also like kind of social media personalities that we felt if they liked our product would then be receptive to talking about it. So like trying to buy into that clinical community, like Kevin said. And from there, it was just a continuous process of like, hey, these are the ingredients that seem to work. Like, do you agree? Would you add anything? Is there one we're missing? Maybe we'd say, okay, we want this in as well. And then when we went to the lab, it's just, hey, these are the top ingredients that we know we want and we want to build the product around. Now you guys, the smart people, the ones who actually do this, you fill in the rest and make sure that they live up to these things. Like nothing socially concerning, no filler ingredients. We always say if it's just in there for show, it's got to go. So like just the ingredients we market are all included in the product at like a functional level or basically in an amount that has actually been studied to do what it says versus saying like, oh, we're including this ingredient, but on the ingredient list, it's at the very bottom. So they basically just put in a little bit very cheaply just to say on the website that they use it. And yeah, it's just a continuous learning process. Had to rely a lot on the experts. We like to always say that we go into conversations as the dumbest in the room, and we try to do that so that we're, again, try to approach this with a certain level of humility that allows us to really prioritize what's objectively right. And again, not just what our passion is, what we think is going to be best, because we know what we're good at and we know what they're good at. And then the way we found our manufacturer is a pretty cool story too.
Yeah. And I think, you'll hear us say it a bunch throughout this podcast. Like it came down to what we were trying to do with the product was there was already male brands out there, but we were trying to create the highest quality male product built the way guys want, but still has that lifestyle branding that makes it more approachable. There's already lifestyle brands out there, but there are too many SKUs. They weren't using ingredients that our dermatologist would put on our face. We're like, why isn't there the highest quality skincare for guys built the way we want that has a branding that we can align with and is a little more approachable? To Ben's point, finding the manufacturer, just kind of like most startups, you got to get on the phone, you got to grind. Like it was a tough process. The first year, we didn't really know what we were doing. We're reaching out to China, we're reaching out to different labs. We're like, how do we get this? We couldn't find anything. And Ben brought up the contract manufacturers that I learned in my class and just trying to find the right one. And it was tough. And funny enough, my fiance now is my girlfriend at the time. Her boss was part of the founding team of that EOS lipstick. It was like shaped like an egg, if you're familiar.
Yeah, my wife has one of those.
Yeah. And we were talking with her and she goes, hey, I have a great lab. It's a contract manufacturer focused around skincare. So that's all they specialize in. Skincare development, packaging from A to Z. I'd love to introduce you. Now, the one thing I got to praise Ben for is like they're a small boutique company and you got to have your shit together. And the one thing that we'll say too is starting a business is tough. I can't credit to the people that are doing it by themselves. Two heads are always better than one. Like I can't imagine doing this without Ben. I know he can't imagine doing this without me. I focus on the marketing. He focuses on the numbers, but then we blend. We think differently, but we have a lot of the same interests. People will say that find somebody that's completely different. We like to say find somebody that's very similar, but thinks differently. You guys get to the solution in a different way. When we reached out to this manufacturer, thankfully for Ben, like we had everything together from numbers, the approach, how we're going to scale this business. And this lab wasn't really looking to bring on new people, but they loved the story. They loved the vision. They loved the plan that we had put together. And we sold them. They're like, hey, we'd love to actually bring you on and take a risk at a smaller company. They're usually taking people on that are a little more established. And thankfully, they really helped get us out. They've been in the industry for over 30 years. Like Ben said, go into the room like the dumbest people in the room, not only having the dermatologist, the clinical community, but we had this, group now who was bought in on us, who has 30 years of experience, not only help the packaging, but hey, let's build the best formula possible the way your customers want. And we have all the access and the knowledge to help you do that. So it's cool. After a year of trying to figure out where to go, you just got to keep reaching out and shooting your shot, and ended up finding somebody close to us that actually had a connection and got a little lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to be clear, that we've never once, I think, doubted doing this or where this would go. Like we've been all in from the beginning, willing to every single cent that we have will go into this business. And thankfully, I don't think we're going to need to get to that point. But if there was ever a single period of slight doubt, it was those first 6 months to 6 to 9 months trying to find a good manufacturer. And these people would just we tell them, oh, this is all we want. We want it to be lightweight and like a gel base. Like we think guys are like that. We want it to target these things. And different product characteristics. And then they'd be like, oh yeah, we've got something in the back that like we think is going to be great for you. And they'd send us this like heavy, greasy ass cream. And it was this just generic lab sample that was terrible. And so like when you do that enough times, you're like, oh shit, like, are we going to need like a formulator on the team? Like, do we have to now pivot and go find this, like this, maybe this contract manufacturer world isn't going to work. And that was the only period I think throughout this where there was ever any like, are we going to be able to figure this part out before it gets too late? And thankfully it didn't. From that point on, there has never been any looking back, but that initial process for anyone who's doing it can be very overwhelming and can definitely be frustrating, but you do just got to stick through it. And we're always here to be a resource for people if they have questions, because once you find that out, then everything else does slightly fall a little more into place.
Right. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because the road to entrepreneurship is littered with speed bumps, right? So it's not all fun and games getting to that 7-figure business ownership level. But I want to talk a little bit about the numbers. So like you found the product, you got the provider, the manufacturer. What was your first order like and how did you guys fund it? Did you guys pool some bootstrap money together? Did you have investors? What did that look like to get that first product ordered and shipped?
Yeah, we're 100% self-funded, totally bootstrapped, haven't taken money from anyone else, which we're both very proud of. And I think we can dive deeper into this after about just kind of like what that's done for the business itself. I think the world of VC has changed a lot and like going to get money it's more expensive and comes with way more or less leverage than it ever really has. So yeah, our first order was about $70,000 for 10,000 units. That was, we had to pay half of that up front or 30% of that up front and then 70% of it before it even touched the warehouse. So you're in a negative 6-month cash conversion cycle before you even start. Thankfully, the first month, it was really interesting. Like of course, all the friends and family bought. The second month, sales dropped off drastically. Everyone that we knew had bought it. So now it's just like, okay, who is giving it a try that knows we're doing this? But like we hadn't really started any outbound yet. And then that third month or maybe halfway through the second month, I don't remember. Like Kevin said, he handles the marketing, does just an unbelievably outstanding job. I think we consistently get told by people, like I think people interact with our brand and think we're a lot bigger than we are. They see the professionalism and the content and they're like, oh, these guys are the real deal. And I think we are the real deal, but it's not the way that I think a lot of people perceive. It's just the two of us still cranking this along. Now we've got a bigger team that we've outsourced. But in that third month, Kevin just put the nose to the ground and started learning the Facebook ads world, not only like learning how to manage the platform and do the digital advertising you're very familiar with, but also creating the content, which is just like, I mean, there were times in those first couple months of the business where I was like, fuck, like, what am I even really doing here? Like, this is just not my wheelhouse. And Kevin was just cranking along and getting that ad account up and running. Our goal at the beginning of that year had been to sell through the 10,000 units we ordered. And without what he did on the Facebook ad side of things, that would have been totally impossible. We had really solid success early on. From a financial perspective, there was a lot of things we had to improve on. And, he can talk more about how the path we've taken to lowering acquisition costs and really focusing in on the messaging and stuff. But yeah, I mean, we sold through those first 10,000 units. And from there, it was just off to the races. But, with that comes its own new set of problems, cash flow, profitability, all that stuff.
If you didn't think we were all in from the beginning, you don't want to gloss over. Yeah, 10,000 units for our first order. Unfortunately, that's just the MOQ for skincare. So we were just like, all right,
that's minimum order quantity.
I mean, we both, minimum order quantity. We both fortunate to have good medical sales jobs. So and we didn't start this right out of college. We were 26, 27. But we're like, I mean, I believe in it. You believe in it. Some people are buying a house. You know what? We're going to start a business and I'm all in. We're going to do the 10,000 units and it's either going to work and we're going to sell through it or it's not. But, we believed in it 100%. So we're like, what's the order quantity matter? Because we're going to get through it pretty quick anyways.
Yeah. You have that uneffable belief in yourself that it's going to work out and you're going to find the way and that there's not a plan B, right? But that led perfectly into my next question of what did you guys do? You said you sold it to friends and family. That ran out. Second month comes around. Sounds like marketing-wise, Kevin, you hopped right into Facebook ads. Kind of tell me, what did you do? Like, how did you teach yourself Facebook ads? Did you have help? Did you just hop in and be like, well, I guess Facebook is our platform. Let's try that. What did the marketing initially look like for you? Yeah,
and that's one of the cool things, like even about this podcast, like Ben and I are not formally trained marketers, operators. I was a sociology major and I pretty much just went to school for football. Let's just be honest. Like I didn't find there was an entrepreneur class that I was taking, but never before, As entrepreneurs, you just got to love to learn. And we still love to do it. We're still learning a ton. We've learned so much in this past 2 months, but it's never been easy to start an e-com business, even now, compared to even 2 years ago, from the help from like AI. There's a bunch of courses. Shopify's made it even easier to do web dev. A lot of it just started was, I'm just going to take a ton of courses on how to run Facebook ads, how to do design, how to use some of these other platforms like Photoshop, and now Transition. Canva's pretty great as well. But it really just started out with that, just taking courses like, how do we do this? Facebook was the next trajectory. I mean, a lot of these big businesses, even these 9-figure businesses, are operated on the back of Facebook. We didn't have a social media personality, or I wouldn't say like in the beginning, we had the best idea on how to grow this thing organically. Like you can really take a few different paths on like, hey, we're going to go in all organically and just try to grow it that way, try to grow our organic presence. We went the Facebook route. Advice is like find one, stick with one until you can get really good at it, and then branch out. Don't try to do too many things at once, which we've fallen short of sometimes as well. But took an ecom class on how to run Facebook ads, was a good learning point. I think we've learned a ton too. The best advice I'd give, because we did go the agency route as well. So here's some of the things we messed up on. You got to learn these platforms yourself. It's not hard. It really isn't. And especially until you're spending a ton of money, you don't need to outsource it. Now, when we started, said, you know what, we're not pros. We aren't formally trained. Maybe we should outsource this to an agency. And there was a lot of learnings in that. We went through 3 agencies till we finally came back again. We're like, we can just do this ourselves, save all this money. We don't need to listen to them, and we're only going to get better. And so I would advise, like, even learn how to do these platforms, learn how to run them yourself. You don't need to outsource an agency until, we're about to do $3 million, and we're not outsourcing our Facebook ads. So do it yourself. A lot of people run it, build an internal team, but a lot of learnings came through that over the past year too. Like Ben said, as far as like our position on like profitability is our number one thing. There's a lot of different approaches to Facebook. We've now sit in the camp of running kind of cost controls. If people aren't familiar, instead of just spending money and trying to find ads, like our issue in the beginning for the first year is it all comes down to creative, all comes down to messaging, speaking the right language to your customers. And it can be tough sometimes to find those ads, and you don't want the account just spending willy-nilly, because it will spend your money. That's what it's meant to do. We kind of moved back into this camp of cost controls where it's not going to acquire a customer. It's going to acquire a customer at that customer acquisition cost that we want. And our goal is to just build better creative to get more of those acquisitions, but not allow it to spend more than what we needed at. And that was a huge turning point for our business. That's what led us to the path of profitability.
So what was your Facebook marketing budget when you guys first started out? And what did that like very first ad look like?
I think, it was low. We started low. I was like $50 and just kept going up to $100 a day. Honestly, I can't even remember what the ad was. I'll be honest, so we did focus on, like Ben talked about, like the high quality people think it's bigger. And we've changed a little bit. So perception is reality. So like we did spend probably a little too much money on high quality production in the beginning. Now, where that helps is people think we're a bigger, more established brand. When you're going to come to a brand you've never heard of, you want to feel that trust. And some of that higher quality production did help. But Facebook is such an interesting platform where a lot of times high quality production ads don't necessarily work. So what we ended up finding is a lot of UGC of me telling my story with just my iPhone was all you really needed.
Got to be original.
So you can crank out a lot of content like that, just UGC iPhone content. Facebook, what we've learned is your brand doesn't necessarily have to be represented in the Facebook ads. People will figure out who your brand is when they go to the website, other touch points outside of Facebook. The goal of Facebook is to speak to your customers, get them in the door, and obviously acquire them. So we started a little bit with the high quality, eventually learned that, hey, you know what? Talking to your customers, being authentic, just using a lot of that iPhone content was really the best route. And so it's really evolved over. And then just even I think our design abilities and everything, being able to build ads has really, from what it looked like in the beginning, we've come a long way in 3 years for sure.
Yeah. Do you guys do a lot with email marketing?
Yeah. And I think that's another thing one thing that every now and then we've got to take a step back and just be like, okay, we should be proud of ourselves for certain things. Both of us this whole time have just been very good about, like, we're relentless about going and reaching out to the right people. We're relentless about closing our gaps as quickly as possible. Like, to Kevin's point, and in defense, I know you're part of the agency world. I think where I'll slightly disagree with him is I think it's an unfair characterization that, like, the agencies were, and I don't even think he was characterizing it as this way, but just to clarify, is like the agencies were not the cause of us not doing well. More than anything, the cause of us not doing well was like until we had two events happen. One, an inventory shortage where like we couldn't, our best month ever of ads prior to this happening was with an agency that like we respect. They're really good dudes. They were super, super helpful. Then we have an inventory shortage and we're like, well, we've just got to cut back spend and we can't afford your retainer. Like it doesn't make like economic sense. What that forced us to do was go really deep into like the numbers. And we hadn't done that. Like we didn't even have a P&L other than like kind of like a bookkeeper P&L. Like we didn't have a cohesive P&L until probably March of 23. So that was basically a year after we started. Like we were just flying by the seat of our pants, doing a bunch of like back of the napkin math on the agency side. Like if you're working with a brand who doesn't actually know what their goals are, then it's going to be really hard to meet them. And so like, I do think that's like a fair defense of the agency thing. But where I do agree with Kevin is brands at our stage should be, I think, running your ads until you're at a bare minimum, like in the 1 to 2 million revenue range. Or unless you have like vast experience, you're like, I know how to offload this. Your financial acumen is really good. And you're like, I'm offloading this because I know the process. For us, we've just learned a lot through that, but we also had to learn the other side, like the number side of things. And now we have goalposts that when we do offload to an agency again, or just a contractor, we know exactly where those goalposts are and how acquisition impacts cash flow and how it impacts the balance sheet and how everything funnels down to a profit number. And like, we just didn't know that at the time. For email, where I was going with that is like that we talked to a brand who's a very big brand. I bought their products multiple times prior to us getting connected with the founder. And they told us that they like were just really starting to invest in email and like SMS. And this was like 4 or 5 years into the road. I think Kevin and I are both so obsessed with like, we're perfectionists 100% at heart. That can lead to like an analysis paralysis like happening every now and then. But like, because we're both like that, especially within our respective like kind of things that we work on, like email and SMS, like from his course, from everything we read, it's like, oh, like these are the bedrocks. Like me and him used to sit there and go, I don't understand how email is going to be such a priority. Like I literally created another email address that I use only for signing up for brands because I just don't want to get the emails from anyone. But then everyone's telling us like, you have to do this. This is going to be a huge revenue generator. And for us, it is. It's like 25 to sometimes 30% of revenue. And we just, from a very early time, like we were just like, okay, well, it doesn't make sense to us yet, but everyone says it. Like we always kind of like, our thought process is, okay, what do the experts say? Does it make sense to us or not? Like, if no, then like revalidate. But like, if the experts still say it, then do something. Or if there's an opportunity, like we'll always trust the person who has more experience than us first, like a little bit, and use that as a buffer until we can learn, take away from them what we can. You know, each of these agencies, we took away different things. One was better at testing angles than the other. The other was better at the unit economics and like financial management of the business. The other one is actually like the worst agency we've ever worked with and is potentially getting sued right now. But yeah, we always knew that we had to do the things that other people, like we would always just listen to what kind of was best practices and find a way to implement them and then put our own spin on it. Or we'd start by putting our own spin on something and then the expert would come in and prove that our spin was like in the right track, but wrong. And like, we just, again, super committed to being agile and adapting, taking in the best information at the time. And I forget who had the quote, but an older person in history has a quote of like, the most respectable person is the one who like changes their mind or changes their opinion when presented with new information. And that's us. I mean, we could change philosophies like 4 times in a month. If we go, oh, that makes more sense, like boom. And then if someone else tells us something, like we're never super stuck in our ways except for what we know the brand is meant to be. Like we'll never compromise on our values and what the brand is meant to be. We'll never compromise on like product quality, but for anything else, like we just want to learn and we want to find the way to do it, what's best for us, but also like what's been proven to be best.
Yeah, absolutely. And just from the email side of thing, coming from the ads and email world, like an ecom email it's the way to print money. Like it's unbelievable. You guys already know that, but that's, if you're starting an ecom brand, if you're going to do anything at minimum, get your email list going and handle that before you spend a single dollar on ads, even looking at it from that angle, because so much more can come from email, especially right off the rip.
I would say too, real quick, the other thing is just, I mean, we talked about the brand or whatever, and Ben was saying like, what do I even do now? Like the other thing like we talked about the surveying the data. One other thing too, it's so important and it's cool to see how evolved just Ben has gotten over the past like 3 years, but like how important, I'm not a numbers guy, but how important the numbers are from the get-go. It's never been easier now to find these like templates, the P&Ls. Like Ben gets compliments all the time. Like, we're going to be a $3 million business, this year? He's running in this like better than like some $30 million businesses just based on our mentors that run these big businesses. And it's been a game changer for us to profitability, to how we're tracking. Like, it is so important. One of our other mentors, like, there's a book that says like you can have 5 different creators or whatever, but like finding an operator is like one of the hardest things. And the operation of the business is so important. That's what's really been the game changer, I feel like, for us. And I always use the analogy, I make the car look pretty, but Ben's the one driving it and making sure it's running smoothly. And getting that set up from the beginning is crucial.
Kevin's going to make me cry on the call.
But I just want to we talk, everyone wants to focus on the brand in the beginning. And yeah, it's important, gets people in the door, but like the operation of the business we talked about in the before call, like to me, I'm not even the numbers guy. Like, that's the most important thing. Like you said, you could be running a $10 million business and you're like, well, how much money are you actually bringing home? Like, could be nothing.
Yeah.
All it is it's further evidence that, hey, we work extremely well together, and that without either one of us, like, this business wouldn't be what it is objectively. There's just no way of going around that. I think one thing just to add on to that, because I could not agree more, is like my biggest, it's not a regret, just my biggest learn. Anytime I talk to someone who's talking about starting a brand, is like Kevin just said, aside from having starting your brand identity and like starting to talk through messaging, like those are such core components of launching. Like, without that, you have no sales, and then numbers don't mean anything if you don't have sales. So that part, I do think it comes before. The earlier that you commit to having any level of financial acumen and financial kind of excellence, it would have changed the game for us at an earlier time. Like, us knowing to go after certain metrics and going after certain profitability goals and cash goals early. I mean, we finally now are out of this cycle, but there were 2 or 3 separate times where we had to go put right in like more like 20, 30 grand checks. And what really prompted this was we got to a point where we both looked at each other. We said, listen, we're both willing to die on this hill. Like, we'll empty out every bank account that we have, but like, do we seriously want to just keep dumping money in? And we haven't even attempted to really change the one thing that would change us having to do that. And once we did that, we went on like a 6-month streak of being profitable. We accumulated an immense amount of cash. We paid for our first and our most recent inventory bills completely out of cash without having to worry about money coming in. And like, that's when business becomes fun. That's when the marketing stuff becomes fun. Like, that's where when Kevin, he says he's not a numbers guy and he's learning a lot of that stuff very well, in the same way I'm trying to like catch up on some of the marketing. But like, how I positioned him is, I was like, the second that we can start making this the priority and that there's more money, I was like, that's when I always worry that Nike's going to come in and steal him as like a creative director at some point. And I'm like, the second that you get this, that we're more profitable and we have cash churning through the bank accounts, like, you get to go spend more of that on the fun types of marketing, not just doing like phone ads and sitting in Canva all day doing like static ads. Like, that's when all of a sudden we can go take big swings. And I just think that there's been too much of a focus for too long on just growth at all costs. And that's not what's going to pay you. Like, we are finally paying ourselves. And after 4 years of working for free, like, I mean, what are we doing? This isn't like the freaking charity center. And so we're trying to do just anyone starting a business, like, you're in this to make money, whether you're trying to get acquired or you just want to pay yourselves a good living wage for the next 40, 50 years. Like, you need to find a way to make money that comes from focusing on this stuff. And I agree with him. It's been enlightening and it's been a game changer for us to figure it out. I appreciate the compliments, but more than anything, I'm just excited for us because it gives us just this immense amount more of opportunity to actually do the things we want to do. And we've like done the grind up to this point, and now this is where it really, really starts to get like fun and electric. And that's not possible if every single month you're just like finding ways to pay the bills and living paycheck to paycheck as a business.
That's the golden advice. That's a deep cut you guys provided there, because we can talk all day about high level stuff and numbers, yada, yada. But if you don't actually know this stuff, if you don't take the time to build up your acumen in this, then it's going to be very, very difficult to actually be a business owner as opposed to just an operator who maybe even gets to pay themselves sometimes, right? Exactly. Huge difference there. So speaking of the numbers, what are the margins like in a business like yours? If you're willing to share with us your margins, what are they like in skincare and what is it like at PrettyBoy?
Yeah. So on the product side, we hover around like above 80%. what's exciting about that, that's obviously a pretty strong product margin initially. And as you scale, that's going to only get bigger from just like economies of scale with ordering. So very important for us to maintain that, because especially when you have inefficient marketing, which we did for like a year and a half, that you have to find somewhere where there is going to be any amount of margin to take home. We typically gross out like in the 50 to 55% range. As I'm sure you know, like you're in the world today, like everyone's forecasting off of contribution margin. And like that's the hot metric, the way we look at that. And it's funny, like even though Kevin's not a numbers guy, like from very early on, I know because I was always the one like doing them. He'd be like, well, I know like we're like, he didn't know how to say it, but he would always be like, well, I know we're supposed to have like our returning revenue is like supposed to cover the business, like a certain element of our revenue is supposed to cover the business expenses. And so like that is in a sense, like by definition, your contribution margin. And that is where we typically hover in like 30-ish to 35, can be 40% range. The way we do like forecast it is looking at like what I just said. Like we need to make sure that our business and our returning revenue is doing well enough that by the time that all gets accounted for and acquisition costs have gone in, that we have enough to just at least baseline. Like our goal is basically to be break even or slightly profitable. We're not at a position where we need to be like excessively profitable. There's way more value for us in growing, building up the like returning cohorts that come from those heavy acquisition months. And then net wise, like I said, we're an open book. I don't know why more people aren't. We lost money every single month for the first 18 months, except for 2. But since January of this year, we've been anywhere from like a 5 to 15% range. So taking home some good cash, and that goes in the bank account. And then like, for example, last month, we were both getting antsy, and Kevin had been cranking out like this entire marketing process, a content engine. Like we were so committed to having our ads work and perform. And we kind of like, we just made the decision it's to open up those cost controls he was talking about a little more and say like, we just want to go and get, and we can talk about this more in a separate episode, or if you have any content on it, definitely point your listeners to like the importance of cohort-based forecasting for returning revenue. But we were like, you know what? Like we don't need all of the extra money right now. There's not a bill that has to be paid. Like let's go open up the doors a little bit and go and try and build like a very big cohort for that month. And so last month, like we took like a 6.5% loss on the month, but that is in exchange for when you have this understanding of where your cash is going to be and like what the buyback period is on an acquisition and what the like lifetime value of a customer is. You go, okay, like for these next 2 months, we can go blow it out of the water. And then we're going to tighten things back up. And you start to realize the levers that you can pull to make sure that you're still achieving your ultimate goals without like putting yourself in a compromising position.
Absolutely. And are you guys subscription based? Like, or is that an option, or are most of your sales coming from those who subscribe, or is everything a one-off purchase?
So Kevin's been doing a ton of, I didn't know if he was going to start to answer that. I'll answer the subscription piece like really quickly. For a long time, yes, we were pushing that very hard. It was accounting for basically like anywhere between 30 and 40,000, sometimes higher in revenue per month. So that was like definitely covering the OpEx that we were talking about. Like that was good, but we were so inefficient at marketing during that point that we were still losing money. So like when you're sitting on a guaranteed $40,000 in revenue and you can't make any money on that month and you're as small as we were, like that's a sign something needs to change. So that's where that turned over to him. He's been working a lot on like landing page and offer testing and making sure that those initial orders are not only profitable, but raising, like he explained, Kev, like the impact of AOV to stuff like this. And
yeah. And especially just with Facebook, like, I mean, we've heard it from the beginning, like, so we only launched with one product. You know, it's cool to do 7 figures with one product. That means we're onto something. But we learned early on that a $38 product cost, it's hard to acquire a lot of customers profitably at the number you need, because $38 is what we're charging, but like we need to acquire them even cheaper than that to really be profitable. So we kind of changed it. You know, we obviously offer the subscription that was on our website. We were pushing that. We've now just, even with our mentors, like pushed more towards one, landing pages, advice on Facebook, like understand your customer, the messaging, like make sure you're speaking to them the right way, and then make sure you can tailor that message so it's a full funnel of like, this is the ad and it's going to a landing page that kind of correlates with the ad. You have a higher conversion rate or conversion chances with that. And we've been pushing now to raise that AOV. So coming up with different offers like bundling. We obviously just launched our newest product. So there's, you know, a starter kit now, but our goal is like, if we can have a higher AOV and increase that AOV, it's going to become easier for us to acquire customers that are profitable rate and then allow us to grow. So like the past couple months has really been pushing to increase that AOV up to allow us to acquire customers profitable.
That's average order value for those who aren't quite sure. Yeah.
It's funny. We started in the beginning where we're like, God, everyone's using all this lingo. And I'm like, I don't understand it. And now we're the ones freaking doing it. So average order value. But that's really the name of the game, especially starting out, is like you want to try to everything from your website, upsells, cross sells. Obviously, you want it to be smooth and, not piss people off. But the goal is to try to increase that average order value because it's going to make things a whole lot easier to acquire customers.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to be wrapping up here in a little bit. I have kind of a zoom out question that's sitting at the top of my head right now. What are the logistics like? Do you guys have a warehouse full of your stuff? Like, are you picking and packing? I see in the background on video here, it doesn't look like you have a house full of skincare products. So I imagine you've got quite a system in place. What does that look like?
Yeah, it was super fortunate. I used to pack a lot of the orders out of the bedroom. So if you had done the podcast with us like a year and a half ago, you probably would have seen them. It just gets to kind of an equation of like time, value, and money. And so once we were at like the 100 orders a day, like 80 orders a day, it became clear that this would be a worthwhile thing to offload. Went with one 3PL and they were great for a while. We unfortunately, they encountered a cyber attack around the holidays and that just didn't go great for us and the customer experience. And so a guy who actually helped mentor us through that, like he just saw we posted on a forum about like how to deal with some of this. And he called and he's like, hey, I actually have a company, but it sounds like you guys are kind of screwed right now. Like I just want to make sure. I think that's one of the best things. Quick sidetrack is like this community is so insanely helpful. One thing we found is that people are even more helpful and will extend the period of like free help you get if you just do what they say. Like if someone gives you advice and you implement it and you can come back to them and say like, oh, this worked or it didn't work. They know that they're not at least wasting their breath. And so this guy did the same thing, got on the phone with us. I was in Austria at the time. It's like 2 a.m. and taking calls, dealing with this. And he was just like a very kind and consultative kind of like person. And so his name's Brien. His 3PL is called Fully Built. They're built out of Illinois. Plug for him. For anyone listening, they're absolutely amazing. And yeah, so it's pretty simple. Logistics it's one of those things that I always tell this to the 3PLs when we talk to them is like the best case scenario is that I only talk to you when like you have a question for me or we're telling you a new order's coming in. Like that means everything's going smooth. Business owners don't want to be spending multiple like hours a day on anything related to logistics. And that's what it's been. They're an amazing team. And it's a great thing to, once you scale to that point, and Kevin's made some like cool content on it. Like there's certain like stepping stone blocks that I think once you move to a warehouse and you can afford to pay someone to do your work for you is a great sign. And when it supports the overall bottom line, you're like, okay, this is a nice thing to offload.
But if you go to our like Instagram, yo.prettyboy or yo.prettyboy on Instagram, you'll see some founder kind of videos. But we did do for just over a year, 10,000 units showing up to our apartment stored in. Wow. I had moved in with my girlfriend and we just kept my room and put 10,000 units in there. You can see it. So we did do the grind work in the beginning and then fortunate enough to offload it. It was fun, but after a while, you got to focus on other things in the business to help it grow versus then you start packing orders all day.
Right. I love it. And we might even need a part 2 here because I want to ask you guys how you sell. You sell via the website, but did you guys ever branch into Amazon? Like I know that's a whole nother topic, but do you guys currently sell on Amazon?
Yeah, I'm growing super fast on it. So
okay.
Anyone who pays attention, I think Sean Riley at Dude Wipes, he talks a lot about that. And that was like when we really, basically his general philosophy from what I interpret is like, if you are a small brand who's worrying about the things Kevin's talking about with CAC, who's worrying about cash, like so Facebook is objectively the best platform to get eyes on your product, but Amazon is the best place to get your product into people's hands, like no doubt. And if you are struggling and you are doing this small and growing and scaling slowly, like there is no better place to meet your customers where they purchase than on Amazon. And so we went through, like we did one stint with Amazon and then due to inventory, like, oh, well, we make more money D2C, let's pull it back off. And then like we went back on and it was a slow ramp up. And now like that's a priority for this year is like, we want to maximize that channel to the best that we can. Our marketing metrics on there are definitely better than D2C. Like the potential for us to be more profitable is there. You'll obviously be more profitable with your own traffic, but if your marketing's not where it needs to be, like if the metrics aren't where it needs to be, then like that can inverse really quickly. And so Amazon's been a very steady channel for us. We're super committed to it. We think that in 5 to 10 years, realistically, like the Amazon model is what's going to dominate everyone. Like 3PLs are going to have to figure out a way to deliver services. Carriers are going to have to figure out a way to meet Amazon where they're at. Because, I mean, can you really imagine going to a store to like buy one of our products other than when you're traveling, or like you just run out and you have like a breakout or something? Like, I'd way rather just be able to click 2 buttons. It shows up in 2 days. And so I think like we're very committed to that for sure. But like you said, I mean, we'd love to do a second.
Meet your customers where they are. And there is a correlation with Facebook ads that guys go, then we'll go to on Amazon. I mean, I buy all my stuff on Amazon. Where are guys buying products?
Yeah.
I'm going to Amazon.
Yeah.
Amazon. I go to Amazon first for every single thing that I want to buy. And then if I have to go to someone's website, I do. And then I get annoyed. So like, you got to take all that stuff in, even how Kevin's working on some CRO stuff. And like, we will often see a website and like screenshot and send it to each other and be like, oh, like this is smoother. Like this is nicer. I like that experience. Like, because you can get overwhelmed in ecom with like, there's an app for everything. There's a flow for everything. And it's like, oh, well, just make it easy. Like if your product's good, your messaging straightforward, like just make it really freaking easy for people to interact with you. Otherwise they will go to another channel that might not meet.
It's our ethos. Less is more. Make it easy. Make it simple, easy products.
And one thing, I know we're going to wrap, but I've told this to a couple of people recently, and me and Kevin feel this way. It's literally just kind of like a last piece of advice for anyone who's at a smaller stage or a growing stage. Like, I think the biggest thing that has impacted us is we changed our approach to just how we were learning. So yeah, there's a lot of good classes online. Leverage those for sure. Some of them are free. Some of them cost money. I would say about like probably first or second quarter of 23, we got introduced to this guy, Sean McGinnis. We met him at a conference and he was a super smart guy. And we were like, hey, would you consider working with us? And he was like, yeah. And so we started paying him a consulting fee. And that was what accelerated like a lot of our learnings on like some marketing reporting and like some of the financial acumen. From that point on, like if you treat running a business like getting a master's degree or going to college, like those things do cost money. And the hard cost of paying somebody to teach you things is I fully believe put your nose in and like just like try and learn as much as you can. But like Kevin and I have recently started paying more and more mentors, and that has like accelerated our learning so drastically that for anyone, like I know it can seem like a lot to be like, oh, I'm going to pay this person $1,000 a month to do this when I'm not even making that much money. But like if you have the long-term vision in place, and you know that like, and not every $1,000 you spend on a mentor is going to like be the best. Like you're going to miss sometimes. They're not going to be good mentors. But if you treat mentorship as basically a business cost center of like, this will help me accelerate way faster. I just think it's changed the game for us. Like he's got marketing mentors. I've got finance mentors. Like we've now built a little mini team of people who advise us, and like we're moving very fast now because not only are our ideas good and sound and well thought out, but we have other people checking them. We have other people teaching us new things who will help us. Nothing's worse than spending 2 or 3 days trying to correct like an Excel formula that somebody else could be like, this is the way to do it.
Yeah. Mentors that have been successful too in what you're trying to learn. Like in the industry, like some of ours have run like massive brands or like, you know, they've been 9-figure brands. Like find those people. There's a coach for everything now. Like find those people that are either currently running a successful brand or have been extremely successful of whatever you're trying to learn.
100%.
Yeah, I can double down on that, especially coming from MU, where we're working towards that, where we want to be the mentors and the folks we provide, collaborators who have this ability to teach and to inform and to mentor others who are starting the business. Because I can tell you, I started in heavily investing in mentorship on my own about 2 years ago, and it has taken my business to the next level. Because it just makes sense, right? Somebody who they can see around those corners that you can't quite see around yet, but they can tell you it's a cheat code. It's a shortcut.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with shortcuts in business when they're provided by the right people doing the right thing and helping you do the next best thing for you. It's incredible.
Yeah. At one point, we wanted to learn everything and do it on our own. And like, it was like a pride thing objectively. And like, it was a necessity at a certain point. But now it's like, we have proven everything we can prove at this point. There's nothing left to prove other than just like how much bigger this can get. Like we've learned a lot. We've launched products. Now it's about making a successful business, and going to find those type of people is the way that it's going to be best served, I guess.
Yeah. And there's no shame in admitting I don't know what I don't know, but somebody out there knows what I don't know. And I want them to come tell me what I don't know. It just makes too much sense.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, guys, we're going to start wrapping here. But so what's next for Pretty Boy? Like, what's on the horizon for you guys? What are your next goals and ceilings that you're going to come crashing through here in due time?
I mean, I think for us is, we're sticking to, like, we just launched our second product. The biggest thing now is, like, we're focusing on getting that SPF out and kind of being a game changer in that category. That way you kind of have your basic set that any dermatologist would recommend. So SPF, and then I think just keep growing this brand, growing this community. I mean, we're trying to grow this thing quick and be a thought leader in this space and really blow it up. So it's get that next product out and then just keep growing this thing the right way.
I love it. I love it. Well, guys, we covered a ton today. We could probably go for another hour. I might even have to have you all back because this was awesome. How can our listeners get a hold of you? How can they get a hold of your product? It's yoprettyboy.com. Give us all the deets.
Yeah, yoprettyboy.com for our website. You can find us on Amazon as well. Instagram is yo.prettyboy, TikTok yo.prettyboy. But yeah, yoprettyboy.com, and then we're also on Amazon as well, like we discussed.
All right, perfect. And I think we can hook up our MU listeners with maybe a little bit of some swag, a good offer from Yo Pretty Boy. Get some more people in the door, yeah?
Yeah, we made a discount code, UPOD20. That'll be 20% off for anyone who feels inclined to come check us out. We'd appreciate it. I think, Brien said that'll be in the show notes. And then, we're always open. So if anyone ever reaches out to you directly and they caught on to something we said and it really triggered something for them, like, we're happy to talk, keep us in the loop on what you guys do. And I think, like Kevin said, we've been very fortunate to have a lot of people take a vested interest in us, give their time for free to help us. And so we're finally at a point now where I think we've got some, not many, but some valuable things to share with other people. And so if anyone's ever looking for any advice or insight or caught on anything, like we're happy to have you pass them along to us.
If I could too, just wrap up, like just some of our thoughts, like three things, like especially for, trying to have success and grow in a brand. Great products always win. No marketing, no amount of marketing is going to be able to fix if it's a shitty product. Great products always win. Be customer obsessed. Know who your customer is. Meet them where they are. If you can be more, you'll find out so much data to create even the best products just by being customer obsessed. And then just be different. Stand out. Don't try to be like somebody else. We're trying to get better at that, but just be different.
I love it. I love it. Guys, well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time and knowledge. I think we've got a whole bucket full of knowledge bombs that our listeners are going to eat up. So thank you all. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks, man. We appreciate it.
All right. Take it easy, brothers. All right. Let's hear it for Ben and Kevin. These guys seriously brought the noise when it comes to the knowledge of running a 7-figure online direct-to-consumer business. And guys, the one thing that really stuck out to me was Ben and Kevin both mentioned that top-line revenue is great. It's one thing. But if you get hung up in it and you don't care about your profitability, if your numbers are all amiss, then you're going to be in a huge problem, a big pickle in your business. So always be focused on that bottom line. What is the profitability? That's the biggest thing that I took from today's episode, amongst the litany of other things that these guys shared with us. So thank you to Kevin and thank you to Ben for joining me. This was a big pleasure of mine. And to you, our loyal listener, I have but two humble requests. First of all, if you enjoyed this episode, do me a favor and text your best friend, maybe your business partner, whoever it is in your sphere that you think would enjoy listening to this episode. Shoot them the link to this and let them enjoy it as well. And number two, if you haven't already, go to millionaireuniversity.com/training and download our free business course. If you have not started your business, this is a perfect way to kind of get your feet wet and instruct you on the types of things that you need to do before kicking off and helping you take that first piece of action and to start living your dream, being a business owner. All right, guys, that's it for me. Brien Gearin signing off here. I cannot wait to see you back on the next episode of the Millionaire University Podcast. Go crush it today, my friends.